Welcome. You're standing in Apis Prime, capital of the bee empire, a civilization that rebuilt the world by rebuilding pollination. 2 centuries ago, the old world learned a brutal lesson. You can lose cars, you can lose cities, you can even lose networks, and still survive. But when pollinators collapse, the food web collapses with them. Orchards fail, seeds vanish, and the future becomes smaller every season. The bee empire's answer was not just save the bees. They turned bees into infrastructure. Look up. The skyline isn't made of straight towers. It's made of stacked hexagonal terraces, like a living honeycomb turned into architecture. Every surface is warm biopolymer and dark resin, patterned in repeating cells. Vents open and close along the walls, and across the entire city you hear it, a steady hum that never fully disappears. From above, Apis Prime is a spiral. At the center is the hive crown, a massive ringed complex glowing with amber light. That light isn't decoration, it's production. This is honey biotech at city scale. Walk with me down the procession ramp. The air gets sweeter as we descend. Not perfume sweet, real sweetness mixed with warm wax and green plant oils. This first district is the Nectar Exchange, the economic heart of the empire. It looks like a market, but it functions like an exchange floor. Thousands of citizens move through narrow lanes under translucent canopies. Between them, service drones drift in perfect arcs, like bees doing housekeeping. And through the stalls, you can see thin pipes carrying amber liquid, nectar feedstock, toward the central refineries. Now come closer. I want you to see how money works here. A worker holds up a palm-sized capsule called a Pollen Seal. It's the size of a large coin, but it doesn't look like metal. It looks like biological amber fused to a microchip. In the bee empire, value isn't backed by gold. It's backed by verified pollination work. Every pollen seal is traced to a root. Which greenhouse layer, which orchard terrace, which crop cycle. It's proof that growth happened, measured, recorded, and signed by the swarm's own telemetry. And once your currency is tied to living ecosystems, wasting resources stops being abstract. It becomes measurable, public, and expensive. Ahead of us is the wax basilica, the spiritual center of Apis Prime. It's an enormous vaulted hall grown from layered wax composites, strengthened with resin ribs like bone. Warm light pours through honeycomb windows. The patterns are so precise they feel ancient, like a religion carved by mathematics. At the far end stands the statue of the first queen. Not an insect queen, but the first engineer who solved the crisis. Now we're entering the biotech galleries, where honey stops being food and becomes technology. On your left are the royal jelly clinics. Behind glass are clean rooms with amber-lit tanks. Technicians monitor nutrient curves and enzyme activity. Royal jelly here isn't folklore. It's a regulated medical substance used for wound healing, immune therapies, and tissue repair. On the right are the Propolis Foundries. Propolis is the resin bees use to seal and sterilize a hive. The empire scaled it up. Inside these halls, heated resin flows through channels like molten glass. This is the bee empire's quiet advantage. They don't just build cities, they build surfaces that resist infection. Now step into a residential corridor. This is where the documentary becomes real. A typical home isn't wide, it's vertical, a stack of hex rooms linked by narrow stairwells. Inside, light is soft and golden, diffused through honeycomb panels. Families eat at low tables,
bread, fruit, fermented drinks, and dense honey protein blocks. In the walls are seed drawers built like safes. Every household stores seeds the way older empires stored coins. Outside, the food system begins. Beyond the inner ring, terraces turn green. Vertical orchards climb the sides of buildings. Vine corridors connect rooftops. And above them hang the Sky Apiaries, suspended gardens where engineered bees work in controlled airflow. Watch the bees, and you'll notice something unsettling. The whole ecosystem moves on schedule. Along the orchard edges, flowers tilt in unison toward bands of artificial light that slide across the terraces. Bloom timing is controlled by spectrum and signal. Even nature has been trained to follow the grid. That is the beauty and the danger of a civilization built around one species. Everything becomes tuned to the hive. Now for education. We're entering the Swarm Academy. The halls are lined with interactive walls showing crop maps, wind patterns, and pollination routes. Students aren't tested on memorization first. They're tested on navigation. How to move a living workforce through a city without chaos. A class stands in a chamber where the floor is a giant hex grid. Teachers trigger bloom events like storms. Students reroute swarms in real time, avoiding pesticide zones, heat spikes, and rival drones, while keeping output stable. The top graduates earn a keeper mark, authority to program swarm routes, ration pollen labor, and sign pollen seals. And that brings us to law. The bee empire's enforcers are called the Sting Guard. You see them before you hear them. Matte gold armor, resin shoulder plates, and visor masks that catch the city lights in neat hex patterns. They don't patrol with rifles. They patrol with pheromone authority. Their tools are signal injectors and jammers, devices that override biological sensors. In a second, the guard can make the swarm classify you as a worker, a drifter, or a threat.
If you're marked as a worker, drones will herd you into controlled lanes. If you're marked as a threat, the swarm responds the way a hive responds. Alarms, pursuit, adhesive foam, and a wall of wings that turns the street into a moving barrier. Crime here isn't only theft, it's disruption. Sabotage a pollination route, and you don't just harm one person. You threaten a harvest. You threaten winter. Now let's see the side every empire tries to hide. Follow this service tunnel. The walls are stained. Resin panels are chipped. A maintenance crew hangs from cables, scraping propolis buildup off a massive fungal filter. The hum here is harsher. Machines breathe louder. Hoses wash gray slurry into drains. The city looks perfect from far away because thousands of people spend their lives keeping it from rotting. And rot is the empire's oldest enemy. Mites, fungus, viral drift. A single pathogen can turn a miracle into famine. Every policy, every ritual, every parade is built around that fear. Now we step back into the bright districts, because the bee empire knows how to celebrate. Today is the first Bloom Festival. Streets fill with ribbon kites shaped like wings. Musicians play percussion that mimics swarm rhythm. In the central plaza, citizens release hundreds of tiny light drones that rise and swirl into a perfect spiral overhead, like a constellation forming in real time. And yes, they have sports. This is the Hex Arena, a steep bowl of seats around a field marked in honeycomb lanes. The game is called Comb Run. Athletes sprint across shifting platforms while drones reconfigure lanes mid-play. Winners aren't just fast, they're adaptive. The crowd loves it because the whole empire is built on adaptation. Now the military.
The bee empire doesn't conquer by flattening cities. It expands by restoring land and controlling food stability. But it still needs borders, and borders still need force. On the parade grounds, the Sting Guard moves in mass formation beneath swarm carriers, larger drones that can release clouds of smaller units for blinding lights, signal jamming, and resin foam that hardens in seconds. Their most feared tactic is simple: silence. Cut the swarm signal, and your drones stop listening. Your logistics fail. Your harvest collapses in slow motion. That's why rival states fear them. At the outer ring, the city ends and the world begins. You can see it. Reconstructed forests and terraces fading into dry zones beyond. Dust storms scratch the horizon. Watchtowers stand where green turns to brown. The bee empire's threat isn't only other humans. It's collapse returning. And yet, look at the sky. Above Apis Prime, a chain of orbiting stations glints in sunlight. They aren't warships. They're orbital seed vaults and climate monitors. The Empire stores genetic libraries off-world, safe from fires, floods, and politics. They learned the hard lesson. If the ground fails, you need a backup that doesn't burn. So here is the final question. If you lived in the bee empire, would you choose the inner hive, clean, controlled, safe, guided by swarm law? Or the outer wild, free, uncertain, and one bad season away from hunger? And one more choice for you. Would you join the Swarm Academy as a keeper, the strategist who programs the roots, or the Sting Guard, the protector who keeps the system from collapsing? Because this is what the bee empire really built. A civilization that treats life itself as a system worth protecting. Not perfectly, but relentlessly. And for the first time in a long time, the world blooms on schedule.